we all want to know how to live longer, healthier lives, right?
Yeah.
It's this kind of universal thing. And
hmm
it can feel like this huge mountain of information to climb
I
to really
know.
figure it all out, right?
Yeah.
But the truth is, there's a real hunger for that knowledge, and not just,
Right.
like the superficial stuff, right?
Right.
We want like the real deep dive stuff.
Yeah.
Like, how do we actually make those years ahead, the ones that are coming,
Yeah.
the best that they can be
hmm
without like needing to go back to med school to understand it all.
Right. Right.
So today, that's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
We are doing a deep dive
Okay.
into healthy aging.
I love it.
And we have some absolutely fascinating articles that we've been digging into.
Great.
They go really deep into like the essence
Yeah.
of what it means to really age well.
Okay.
We're talking about like the science that's
yeah.
happening in our bodies,
Yeah.
and some really inspiring stories from places around the world where
Yep.
people are just living these amazingly long and healthy lives.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at the importance of preventive care,
Right.
how our emotions and our connections play a role.
Mm-hmm.
And we're even tapping into some practical wisdom
Yep.
coming straight from the people who study longevity,
Okay.
like for their jobs.
Right.
This is their whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So our goal today
Okay.
is to pull out the most interesting and the most useful nuggets from all this information
Yeah.
so that you listening can navigate your own aging journey feeling like super empowered,
Okay.
informed,
Yeah.
and maybe even a little excited about what's ahead.
Yeah.
It's possible, right?
I think so.
To actually be excited about getting older.
I think so. I mean, there's.
I mean, we can't deny that our culture
Yeah.
really pushes this narrative of decline.
Yes, absolutely.
It's all downhill from here, right?
Right.
But,
Yeah.
what I found really interesting is that
Yeah.
one of the things that emerges from all these articles is this idea of shifting our perspective,
Absolutely.
like a fundamental shift in how we view this whole aging thing.
Yeah.
We're so used to thinking about aging as this, like, loss,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
It's all about what we're losing. But when you really look at the biology and when you look at some of these stories, that's really not the whole picture.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's not just about what we're losing.
I think it's more like a transformation almost.
Oh, interesting.
Right, like you're moving into a different phase of
Yeah.
life, and with that comes some things that maybe you
Yeah.
lose, but also things that you gain.
Okay, so it's like a reframing of how we're
Totally.
looking at this whole process.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not a disease.
Exactly.
Right.
It's not something to be feared or avoided.
Right. It's a natural
Just part of life.
stage of life.
Yeah.
And with its own, unique beauty and challenges, I imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And even advantages that come with
Well,
it.
advantages.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's intriguing. Well, let's
Yeah.
look at some
Yeah.
real world examples of this in action.
Okay.
Because we have all heard about these places around the world, the blue zones,
Right.
where people are consistently living these like remarkably long
Right.
and healthy lives.
Yeah.
And,
Genius.
some of the places mentioned are Ikaria in Greece,
Uh-huh.
Okinawa in Japan,
Right?
Sardinia in Italy,
Mm-hmm.
Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica,
Uh-huh.
and even a community in Loma Linda, California.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So my question is,
Yeah.
what's the real deal
Right.
with these places?
Yeah.
Like, what is it about these specific locations that makes them such longevity hotspots?
Well, one of the things that's really interesting is that it's not just about genetics.
Okay.
People think, oh, well, they just have good genes.
Yeah.
But what's really fascinating,
Yeah.
that a lot of it comes down to lifestyle.
Okay.
So it's the everyday choices they're making,
Yeah.
the way they're living their lives, the environments they live in.
Yeah.
All of that contributes.
Okay, so you're saying it's more of like a holistic
Totally.
picture. It's not just about one single thing?
Exactly.
Okay, so if we were to kind of like zoom out and look for the common threads,
Uh-huh.
what are the things that these blue zones share?
Right.
Like, what's their secret sauce?
Well, we can definitely see some patterns emerging.
Yeah.
Right? And so
Yeah.
one of the big ones is movement.
Okay.
So in these blue zones,
Yeah.
people are moving naturally throughout their day.
Sure.
They're not necessarily going to the gym
Yeah.
and spending hours working out,
Yeah.
but they're incorporating movement
Yeah.
into their daily routines.
Okay.
Whether it's gardening or
Yeah.
walking places instead of driving, just
Yeah.
generally staying active.
Okay.
Another big one is purpose.
Okay. So having a strong sense of purpose,
Yeah.
like a reason to get up in the morning,
Yeah.
really seems to contribute to longevity.
Okay.
And then another one is community.
Okay.
So these Blue zones are often places where people have really strong social connections.
Yeah.
They feel supported by their community. They have
Yeah.
people to rely on.
Okay, so a sense of belonging.
Yeah, a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Another big one is diet.
Okay.
And in these blue zones, the diets tend to be primarily plant-based,
Right.
focusing on whole, unprocessed foods.
Like real food.
Real food.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of fruits and vegetables,
Yeah.
whole grains,
Uh-huh.
legumes, things like that.
Yeah.
And then the last thing
Yeah.
is stress management.
Okay.
They all have different ways of managing stress,
Okay.
whether it's through
Yeah.
spiritual practices
Yeah.
or spending time in nature
Yeah.
or just having close relationships with loved ones.
They've found ways to really keep their stress levels in check.
So it's like this multifaceted
Yeah.
approach.
Mhm.
It's not just one single thing.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have these examples of these communities where people are
Well.
thriving and aging well.
Yeah.
But let's zoom in now,
Okay.
like way into
Yes.
the cellular level.
Uh-huh.
What is actually happening
Right.
inside of our bodies
Yeah.
as we get older?
So that's a great question, and the sources go into some detail about the
Yeah.
biology of aging.
Okay.
So one of the things that happens
Yeah.
is something called cellular senescence,
Cellular senescence.
which is basically where our cells kind of,
Okay.
they lose their ability to divide and function properly.
Okay.
So think of it like
Yeah.
your cells are getting tired.
Like they're getting old and tired.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they start to release these inflammatory substances,
Okay.
which we'll talk about a bit more later.
Yeah.
But that plays a big role in the aging process.
Oh.
Another thing that happens is
Yeah.
telomere shortening.
Telomeres.
Telomeres are these little protective caps on the
Right.
ends of our chromosomes.
Yeah.
Like the little plastic tips on your shoelaces.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And every time a cell divides,
Uh-huh.
those telomeres get a little bit shorter.
Okay.
And so shorter telomeres are
Yeah.
associated with aging.
Okay.
And then the last thing is
Yeah.
oxidative stress,
Oxidative stress.
which is basically an imbalance
Okay.
between these things called free radicals
Yeah.
and antioxidants.
Yeah. Yeah.
So free radicals are kind of like these little damaging molecules that can harm our cells,
Yeah.
and antioxidants
Yeah.
help to neutralize them.
Okay.
So when we have too many free radicals
Mm-hmm.
and not enough antioxidants,
Yeah.
that's when we get oxidative stress.
Okay. So it's like a
Yeah,
seesaw.
like a seesaw.
Yeah.
We want to keep it balanced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, and is oxidative stress like a bad thing?
Yeah, I mean, it can be.
Okay.
It can contribute to cell damage
Yeah.
and aging.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those are like the key processes.
Yeah. Those are some of the key processes that happen
Okay.
at the cellular level.
It makes it sound like
Yeah.
kind of inevitable,
Right.
right? Like there's nothing we can do.
Yeah. It can feel that way.
Yeah.
But the good news is
Yeah.
that we actually can
Okay.
influence these processes.
Okay. This is where it gets interesting.
To some extent.
Okay.
Right. So the sources talk about this field called epigenetics,
Epigenetics. Okay.
which is essentially the study
Ah.
of how our environment
Yeah.
and our lifestyle
Yeah.
can actually affect how our genes are expressed.
Okay.
So our genes
Yeah.
are not our destiny,
Okay.
right? It's not like
Yeah.
you're born with certain genes
Yeah.
and that's it.
You're stuck.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's actually a lot that we can do.
To influence how those genes are expressed.
Wow.
And so things like
Yeah.
our diet,
Yeah.
our exercise habits,
Yeah.
how we manage our stress,
Yeah.
all of those things can actually turn genes on or off.
Wow.
So it's like,
Yeah.
think of it like a dimmer switch. You know,
Yeah.
you can kind of turn the volume up or down
Yeah.
on certain genes
Okay.
based on your lifestyle choices.
So we have some control.
We do.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's really empowering.
it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier
Yeah.
this idea of inflammation.
Right.
You called it like a silent ager.
Yeah.
Can you break that down a little bit?
So yeah, chronic inflammation
Yeah.
is a really big deal when it comes to aging.
Okay.
It's kind of this underlying factor
Yeah.
that contributes to a lot of different age-related diseases,
Okay, like what?
like heart disease,
Okay.
type 2 diabetes,
Yeah.
Alzheimer's disease,
Okay.
even some cancers.
Okay.
And the reason it's called a silent ager is because you often don't feel it.
Right.
Right. It's not like you have a headache or...
It's not an acute thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's more of this low-grade, persistent inflammation that's
Yeah.
happening over time.
Yeah.
And it's gradually damaging your tissues.
Okay, so it's like a slow burn.
Like a slow burn.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so what are the things that are kind of
Yeah.
contributing to this?
So a lot of things can contribute to chronic inflammation.
Okay.
Diet is a big one,
Okay.
especially a diet that's high in processed foods.
Okay.
Sugary drinks,
Yeah.
unhealthy fats,
Yeah.
those things can all promote inflammation.
Okay.
Lack of exercise
Yeah.
is another big one.
Okay.
Chronic stress,
Right.
exposure to toxins,
Yeah.
even an imbalance in your gut bacteria.
Oh, so gut health plays a role in this.
Huge role.
Okay. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So it's like this multifactorial
Yeah.
thing that we have to be mindful of.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm assuming
Yeah.
that there are some strategies
Yes, definitely.
for combating this.
Yeah.
Like things that we can do
Absolutely.
to kind of keep it in check.
Yeah.
So the sources talk about adopting an
Yeah.
anti-inflammatory lifestyle.
Exactly.
What does that look like?
Well, first and foremost, it's all about diet.
Okay.
So eating a diet that's rich in fruits and vegetables,
Okay.
whole grains,
Yeah.
legumes,
Okay.
healthy fats like olive oil,
Uh-huh.
and omega-3 fatty acids.
Omega-3s.
Yeah.
Oh.
So things like fatty fish,
Yeah.
flax seeds,
Yeah.
walnuts, those are all great sources of omega-3s.
Okay.
Another key element is regular physical activity.
Okay.
So aiming for at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise per week,
Okay.
or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity and strength training
Strength training. Got it.
is also really important
Okay.
for maintaining muscle mass
Yeah.
and reducing inflammation. Stress management
Right.
is another crucial piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
So finding healthy ways to manage stress,
Yeah.
like mindfulness, meditation, yoga,
Okay.
spending time in nature,
Yeah.
those are all really helpful.
So really prioritizing.
Yeah.
Like self-care.
Self-care and just
Yeah.
taking care of your mental and emotional health.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what else?
Sleep is also super important.
Okay.
Making sure you're getting enough sleep.
Yeah.
Aim for 7 to 9 hours per night.
7 to 9 hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then supporting your gut health
Okay.
by eating prebiotic and probiotic foods.
Pre and probiotics.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, of course, avoiding smoking and excessive alcohol.
Okay. So like,
Yeah.
it's not just one thing.
No, it's all
It's a combination of all these things working together.
lifestyle approach.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, the sources delve into
Yeah.
what they call the pillars of longevity.
Right.
Start with nutrition,
Okay.
because this seems to be a recurring theme.
It is.
All right.
Yeah.
And one of the diets that keeps popping up
Mm-hmm.
is the Mediterranean diet.
Right.
Why is that?
Yeah.
What's so special about this particular way of eating?
So the Mediterranean diet has been studied extensively.
Yeah.
And it's consistently linked
Yeah.
to a lower risk of
Sure.
chronic diseases.
Okay.
It's rich in antioxidants,
Real-
anti-inflammatory compounds,
Yeah.
healthy fats,
Uh-huh.
and it emphasizes whole unprocessed foods.
Okay.
And it includes a moderate amount of fish.
Okay.
So it's not like
Yeah.
you're completely cutting out any food groups. It's
Yeah.
really about balance.
Okay. And are there other eating patterns
Yeah, there are.
that are similar?
So the DASH diet
Okay.
and various plant-based diets
Yeah.
also share a lot of the same principles,
Okay.
emphasizing whole nutrient-dense foods.
Okay. So it's all about like real food.
Yeah, real food,
Yeah.
minimal processing.
But what about those superfoods
Okay, yeah.
we hear so much about?
So superfoods
Yeah.
are foods that are particularly
Yeah.
nutrient-dense.
Yeah.
So they're packed with vitamins,
Okay.
minerals, antioxidants,
Yeah.
things like that.
Are those like a real thing, or is it?
They are a real thing.
Okay.
It's not like they're magic,
Yeah.
but they definitely have a lot of health benefits.
Okay.
So some examples are berries,
Okay.
which are rich in antioxidants
Uh-huh.
that are really good for the brain and the heart. Nuts,
Yeah.
which are a good source of healthy fats,
Yeah.
fiber,
Yeah.
protein,
Okay.
and then fatty fish,
Uh-huh.
which are high in omega-3 fatty acids,
Okay.
and then leafy green vegetables,
Oh.
which are just packed with nutrients.
So really emphasizing like a variety of these.
Variety is key.
Okay. Now, something that seems so simple,
Yeah.
but is really important is
Uh-huh.
hydration.
Yes.
Why?
Hydration is crucial.
Yeah.
It's so important for all of our bodily functions.
Okay.
You know, it helps to transport nutrients, flush out waste,
Yeah.
regulate our body temperature.
Okay.
And as we get older,
Yeah.
our sense of thirst can actually decline.
So we don't even know.
Yeah, so we might not even realize we're dehydrated.
Okay, so we have to be proactive.
We have to be proactive
Okay.
about getting enough fluids.
Okay. Are there like little
Yeah.
hacks or tips?
So Carrying a reusable water bottle with you
Okay.
is a good one.
Okay.
Setting reminders on your phone to drink water.
Okay.
Adding fruits or herbs to your water
Okay. Yeah.
to make it more flavorful.
Yeah.
Eating fruits and vegetables
Oh.
that have high water content. Those
Okay.
are all good ways to stay hydrated.
Okay. So really prioritizing
Yeah.
getting those fluids in.
Yep.
Okay. So we've talked about what we're putting into our bodies.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about
Yeah.
how we're moving our bodies.
Okay.
Because the sources really emphasize that
Yeah.
we are meant to move.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah.
And we've become increasingly sedentary.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
So sedentary lifestyle
Yeah.
is a major risk factor
Okay.
for a lot of chronic diseases.
Okay.
And it can actually accelerate the aging process.
Okay.
So it's really important to make sure that we're getting enough physical activity.
Okay.
And the sources really highlight
Yeah.
the importance of strength training.
Okay. Why strength training?
So as we age,
Yeah.
we naturally start to lose muscle mass.
Okay.
It's called sarcopenia.
Sarcopenia.
Yeah.
Okay.
And strength training helps to counteract that.
Okay.
So it helps to maintain
Yeah.
and even build muscle,
Okay.
which is important for
Yeah.
maintaining mobility,
Okay.
preventing falls,
Hmm.
keeping our bones strong, and
Yeah.
boosting our metabolism.
Okay.
So it's really important.
That's important at any age, but
At any age,
especially as we get older.
especially as we get older.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Give us some examples of.
Okay, so some simple strength training exercises
Yeah.
that you can do at home
Yeah.
are things like squats,
Yeah.
push-ups,
Yeah.
lunges, planks,
Yeah.
rows.
Yeah.
You know, those are all exercises that
Yeah.
you can do
Okay.
with your own body weight.
Yeah.
Or you can use weights
Okay.
or resistance bands
Okay.
and,
Yeah.
aim to do those 2 to 3 times a week.
2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Targeting different muscle groups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what about cardio?
Okay, so
Yeah.
cardio
Like, that's still
is still super important.
important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for heart health.
Okay.
And it also has really amazing benefits for the brain.
Okay. How so?
So it helps to improve blood flow to the brain,
Okay.
which delivers oxygen
Yeah.
and nutrients, and it also promotes neuroplasticity,
Neuroplasticity.
which is the brain's ability to form new connections.
Okay.
So it helps to keep your brain sharp.
So it's like as you age,
Brain exercise.
you're in exercise. Right?
Exactly. Okay, and what are some examples?
So some examples of cardio exercises
Yeah.
are brisk walking,
Okay.
jogging,
Yeah.
swimming,
Uh-huh.
cycling,
Yes.
dancing.
Okay.
You know, anything that gets your heart rate up.
So find something you enjoy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And aim for that 150 minutes of moderate or 75 minutes of vigorous
Yeah.
per week.
Got it.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
sources also mention balance and flexibility,
Right.
which I feel like sometimes get overlooked.
They do.
Right. It's all about like
Yeah.
how much weight can you lift and how fast can you run, but
Yeah.
balance and flexibility are super important.
Yeah, they're super important, especially as we age.
Yeah. Right.
Because they can help to prevent falls,
Right.
which can be a major cause of injury and disability.
Okay.
So things like yoga,
Yeah.
Tai Chi,
Uh-huh.
those are great for improving balance and flexibility.
And, they don't have to be long sessions.
No.
Right. Even just incorporating a little bit.
Even 5 or 10 minutes a day
Yeah.
can make a big difference.
Yeah. Okay. So we've covered
Yeah.
nourishing our bodies,
Right.
moving our bodies.
Yeah.
Let's go to the mind,
Okay.
because this is a huge piece of this whole
Yeah.
aging well puzzle.
Yeah.
And stress is
Stress is a big one.
a big one.
Yeah.
Why?
So stress can really wreak havoc
Okay.
on our bodies.
Okay.
And it can accelerate the aging process.
Okay.
So when we're stressed,
Yeah.
our bodies release a hormone called cortisol.
Cortisol.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if we're chronically stressed,
Mm-hmm.
that cortisol is constantly being pumped out.
Which can damage our cells,
Okay.
weaken our immune system,
Uh-huh.
increase our risk for chronic diseases,
Okay.
and even contribute to cognitive decline.
So it's not just like a feeling.
No.
It's like a
It's-
physical.
It's a physiological
Yeah.
response.
Okay, so we have to.
We have to find ways to manage it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Here's some strategies.
So the sources talk about a lot of different stress management techniques.
Okay.
Things like mindfulness,
Mindfulness. Okay.
meditation,
Yeah.
deep breathing exercises,
Okay.
yoga,
Mm-hmm.
exercise in general.
Yep.
Spending time in nature,
Okay.
connecting with loved ones,
Right.
finding hobbies that you enjoy.